another episode of Hidden Stories Healed Now. Today, we're going to have an opportunity to talk about an issue that we all know only too well. Let's talk about COVID-19 and the impact on all of us. And this segment is really, really important to me because we're talking about mental and emotional health. I am so fortunate to have two wonderful guests with me today. I have Monica Thomas, who is the founder of Kindred Collections Therapy, and she's out of Ohio. And I have Dr. Carla Booker, who is a physician at what we know as urgent care at Wellstar Systems. And I think I can relate to that one because between taking my mama, my daddy, my kids, and myself, I'm there all the time. But, today we really want to, on a serious note, really want to take an opportunity to address the issues that we're dealing with. And so, Monica, you are a social worker and you work a lot with the Black family. Mm-hmm. You deal with Black kids in trauma all of the time. How in the world is COVID-19 impacting them? What are you seeing going on today?
Well, thank you for the question and thank you for allowing me to be here. So by and large, what I'm seeing on the scope of working with children is we're seeing a decrease and decline in the amount of children's services cases that are being reported. So typically when children are in school, they're interacting and engaging with teachers, with nurses, principals, who are mandated reporters and who are seeing those suspicions of abuse and neglect. So since COVID-19, we've actually seen a decline and a decrease in the amount of child abuse and neglect cases that are being reported. So what that means is, one, either those cases aren't being reported or children are being in situations where the abuse or neglect is becoming so rampant that there's no one there to protect them and there's no one there to catch those signs of abuse and neglect. So we're having parents in the home who are having higher levels of stress. They're having to manage unemployment, and that's impacting the way that they parent. So then you're having to deal with the social emotional learning impacts that children are experiencing in the home. And then we're needing to know that parents have the skills and the resources to help children cope. And if those skills and resources aren't there, parents are taking those stresses out on children and it's impacting them in very negative ways.
What kind of things are you seeing from a perspective of parents dealing with these children? What are the things that are really happening? I think we talk a lot about surface level that, yes, we acknowledge it, but I'm not sure everybody really understands the magnitude of what's occurring and the impact.
So one of the biggest impacts are parents are really needing to know how to parent. So the times of kind of sending your children off to school and expecting someone else to do it is over. The time of, passing your children off to the daycare center or someone else who was able to care for them. Parents are really having to learn how to help children manage stress. They're having to help children learn how to manage anger and frustration. And then parents are having to learn how to manage their own anger and frustrations because they're around their children a lot more often than they typically would be. So we also have situations where children are in the homes with parents who are experiencing mental health challenges. So then you have the added struggle of a child having to manage and maneuver around a parent who's not getting the mental health services that they need. So that's having an added impact on the parent. So a lot of parents are talking about how stressful it is to parent, how they really don't know their children or what their children need or how to meet the need. So it's a lot of education that is having to happen around social emotional learning, how to manage stress and how to manage anger. And we're having to make sure that parents know all of those different aspects of parenting and how to make sure that they instill those values and beliefs in children that they can overcome difficult situations.
Because this is happening and you're seeing it today and understanding what's there, how are you going about to help people to realize this is what's needed? If people aren't reporting it, are you getting business? Tell me a little bit about how that's occurring.
So in terms of my practice, I'm able to do virtual therapy. So having that connection with parents is really helping. Having open conversations like this, providing psychological education to parents around what does stress look like, what does anxiety look like. We know for African American boys, sometimes stress looks different, sometimes depression looks different. So having them know what signs and symptoms of mental health challenges are, and then how to have dialogue and conversations around being able to express their feelings and emotions. Because because I think someone said it in another episode that when children are learning how to express their emotions, we have to give them the space to be able to say how they feel, and not only the space to say it, but then knowing how to help them work through it and how to process it. So parents can be really helpful to their children in that regard.
Okay. That's interesting because, as a parent myself, I mean, I have grown children and they're even going through a tough time of dealing with emotional impacts of being at home, trying to work, trying to take care of children at the same time and trying to make those things, balance out. So it can be, I can definitely relate to that challenge. But what are some of the things that you think that are signs that can help us to understand, wait a minute, we may need to look out, especially with our young Black men? What do you think that we ought to have as that guide?
So one of the things that I always tell parents is to always look at the function of the behavior. Don't always focus so much on the behavior, what is the child doing, but what is the behavior trying to communicate? So instead of reacting to the behavior such as anger, lashing out, disconnecting from their siblings or staying in their room, instead of reacting to that, really trying to respond to what it is that they might need emotionally. So that's one of the things that I always try to tell parents, that we need to learn how to respond versus react. And then once we see those signs, which would be withdrawing, again, lashing out, taking their anger and frustration out on others, those are some things that parents can pay special attention to.
Wow. Well, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, I want to talk to Dr. Booker and understand what she's actually seeing in the environment and some of the statistics as around COVID impact. As a physician, we'll be right back.
Every story has a hidden element that is not often shared. Hidden Stories, Healed Now with host Vicki Wright-Hamilton seeks to share the hidden gems in real-life experiences. Our guests are ordinary people sharing their stories of overcoming insurmountable odds while providing hope and inspiration.
When we think about hidden stories healed now, one of the things that is very obvious is that all of us have a journey. Everybody has challenges, trials, and tribulations. Whatever it is that you are experiencing, whatever challenge that may be, whatever hardship that you've gone through, those things that we keep in the closet that we never talk about, those hidden things keep us from being healed. We need to talk about them, even if it's with a trusted confidant. You need to deal with them, because what happens is that they stay with you anyway. It can affect your ability to move forward in any capacity in life. It can have impacts on your health. So one of the things that I always say, let the stories go. Let the emotions out. Let the conversations begin so that you can become healed, so that you can move forward. All you really want is that freedom, the freedom of not holding it back anymore, the freedom of not feeling it in the pit of your stomach, the freedom of not saying that, oh my gosh, I'm embarrassed. See, that's why we keep things in the closet. We either are embarrassed, we don't want anybody to know, it makes us feel bad, and no one wants to hurt. No one wants to be in pain. So talk about it. Find that thought partner, that confidant, that therapist, that person that allows you to be you and accepts you for who you are. So heal yourself by letting the things out. Okay, welcome back. Let's start by asking Dr. Booker, what are you seeing? What has COVID-19 done? You risk your life every day. So first, let me say thank you. Thank you for putting yourself out there to help the community. Thank you for sacrificing what you have to do with your own family to help those that are around you. So as a physician, from me to you, I just want to say thank you, because it is so hard. I know you're making sacrifices every day. So thank you very much for your service. But within that, as you're at Wellstar and in urgent care, and as you are observing things around you, talk to me a little bit about what you're seeing from a COVID-19 perspective, emotionally, mentally, as well as physically.
It's really something. I'll tell you that. And I really want to tell you that I appreciate the acknowledgement, because here we are 7 months into this, and all the meals that we got and all of the cards that we got and all of the signs that we got, we're really not seeing much of that anymore in the acknowledgement of what we're doing. I was at work last night. I worked the night shift, and it's interesting to test someone knowing that they're going to be positive and you're 5 inches away from them, or looking in their ear or looking in their mouth, and you know that they're positive. So there was a time about 3 or 4 months ago where I actually was having panic attacks before I was going into the shift.
Wow.
Because I knew I was going to be coming across when I got there. I knew that I was not just putting myself at risk, but I was putting the people that I love most at risk. I haven't seen my grandson in about 5 months. I can't touch my mother, my 82-year-old mother, when I see her. When someone at the job tests positive, I then quarantine from everyone that's really important in my personal life to make sure that I am not then a vector of infection for them. My husband, when this first happened, a lot of my colleagues have separated themselves from their family. So they've sent their, let's say, wife and children away to their grandparents so that they are not a risk to their family. And my husband and I had a really deep conversation, and I said, you know, should I move to the basement? Should we separate? And he said, you wouldn't last 2 weeks without me. So, you know, from an emotional and personal perspective, you know, I have to truly believe that I am protected, and that my choice of righteousness and my choice of self-sacrifice and my choice to be a servant at this time, it means something. It means something. What am I seeing at the job? What does it feel like to know that we're over 200,000 deaths now, millions of positive cases and hundreds of thousands of deaths? It's sad. It's really sad. I think the way that I keep my focus and don't allow myself to really burn out. And I think, you know, thinking about the idea of what physician burnout looks like, the first thing that happens is you start to kind of separate yourself and distance yourself from the patient that you're taking care of. Because it's painful and it's scary and it's hurtful. And you wonder, well, why were you at the dinner party 10 days ago with no masks on the inside, and now you find out that 3 of the people at the party were positive? So I have to really go at it from a perspective of not judging and not being resentful in order to protect my position as a servant. You know, it looks like sometimes it'll look like the numbers are coming down with what you see on the news. But then what I'm seeing in the clinic every day and the patients I'm calling every day to tell them they tested positive, I don't really see that. So I would love to say that we're swinging in the right direction. But I think that there's a sense of hopelessness and a sense of us as, you know, social people that's keeping people from doing the kind of isolating that I think we still need to be doing.
So that's a very good point. And I'd like for both of you to address this question from that emotional standpoint. How do you handle it? You know, as human beings, we want to be held, we want to be hugged, we want to be touched, we want to be with our loved ones, we want to be with our friends. It's part of who we are, and not being able to touch that grandson or granddaughter, or not being able to hug your mother at her age. How do we deal with this emotionally? What advice can you give us in terms of this is something that you have to work through, and how do we work through it? So I'd like to, go ahead, Monika, if you want to start.
So a couple things came to mind in terms of the anxiety or the stress related to COVID-19, one of the things that I do is I work with children and parents around mindfulness and what that looks like. So it's the practice of being present. So I always tell people that depression and anxiety are distant cousins, and depression keeps us thinking too far back into the past, and anxiety keeps us thinking too far ahead into the future, and it robs us of being present. So if you can just take each moment, every moment to spend with your family, it doesn't even have to be close connection. It could even be something virtual. Me and my family, we do family meetings, just anything that you can do in the present moment to increase that connection. It could be a virtual game. Anything that your family traditionally does, you just kind of have to think outside the box on what that will look like for you to still maintain that connection.
Is it just about connection?
Connection is a big part of it because connection impacts the development of our brain. So for children development, for child development, yes, connection is huge, but connection can look like a lot of different things. It's not just one dimensional. So that's why I said about being creative about what it could look like.
Interesting, very interesting. And what about you?
You know, I've been talking to a lot of we call ourselves sister docs. Really great Facebook connections, really great Zoom connections, and I really am spending a lot of time figuring out who I am outside of myself as a physician. So if you go to Walmart and look for yarn, sewing machines at Joann's, and the gardening section, they're pretty much gone. So I think people are using this as an opportunity to get back to that creativity, to spend time away from who they know themselves to be, and that's been very helpful for me.
Well, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, I want to follow up on some further conversations around this emotional and getting opportunities to actually find solutions and move forward, and then we'll get some questions from our guests. So thank you so much. We'll be back in momentarily.
Every story has a hidden element that is not often shared. Hidden Stories, Healed Now, with host Vicki Wright-Hamilton, seeks to share the hidden gems in real-life experiences. Our guests are ordinary people sharing their stories of overcoming insurmountable odds while providing hope and inspiration.
When we think about hidden stories healed now, one of the things that is very obvious is that all of us have a journey. Everybody has challenges, trials, and tribulations. Whatever it is that you are experiencing, whatever challenge that may be, whatever hardship that you've gone through, those things that we keep in the closet that we never talk about, those hidden things keep us from being healed. We need to talk about them, even if it's with a trusted confidant. You need to deal with them because what happens is that they stay with you anyway. It can affect your ability to move forward in any capacity in life. It can have impacts on your health. So one of the things that I always say, let the stories go. Let the emotions out. Let the conversations begin so that you can become healed, so that you can move forward. All you really want is that freedom, the freedom of not holding it back anymore, the freedom of not feeling it in the pit of your stomach, the freedom of not saying that, oh my gosh, I'm embarrassed. See, that's why we keep things in the closet. We either are embarrassed, we don't want anybody to know, it makes us feel bad, and no one wants to hurt. No one wants to be in pain. So talk about it. Find that thought partner, that confidant, that therapist, that person that allows you to be you and accepts you for who you are. So heal yourself by letting the things out. Welcome back. So, we've been having some really interesting conversations around the emotional impacts and what's happening with COVID. And, I'd like to share something with you about me personally. I'm having a really, really rough time, even virtually. I am Zoomed out. I am Facebook out. It's to a point where it's like, I don't want to see another Zoom. I don't want to see another text message. I don't want to see anything virtual. I want the warmth. I want the hugs. I want the touch. I'm sure my husband is probably asking me every day, okay, you want another hug today? Yeah, I do. I need another one. But it's all the girlfriends. It's the people that you miss spending the time with. So I have two separate questions. One for you, Dr. Booker. Is it safe to go to lunch and do social distancing where you're outside and you're away from each other just so you can have that connection of being in person? Is that safe or is it not?
Being outside is what's key. Being outside allows air to move. Imagine yourself then indoors, where even if you're inside and socially distanced, you've got heat and air conditioning circulating around the room, but it's not filtered and it's not leaving the space. So the safe way to be with loved ones is outside, socially distanced, do your elbow bump, right? And that's about all the touching you can really do. If you want to be extra safe, wear your mask. Don't forget, the mask doesn't protect, your mask protects me. My mask does not protect myself. So I'm wearing a mask, it keeps my personal aerosolized particles closer to my body, which is best protection for you. Wearing a mask doesn't protect me unless you've got an N95 mask, and then that's protecting me from what's going on in the environment.
Wow.
Okay, so wearing your mask, being outdoors, and keeping the visit rather short. No touching of hands, because there's no way that I'm gonna touch you with my hand and not touch my face. Don't forget the virus is then living in what we call the nasopharynx, the very back of your throat. So if I touch my nose, I inhale, now I'm taking those particles into the back of my throat. That's why hand washing, touching my elbow, coughing into my elbow are ways to keep the particles of the virus away from my hands, which I then touch my face.
Wow, that's great information, and I'm definitely gonna keep that in mind because I think I need to call some girlfriends and say, you sit on that side of the park, I'm gonna sit on this side of the park, but I just need to look at you in terms of moving forward. So Monica, I have a question for you. So we talked about the physical aspects of COVID and what that looks like, but the emotional side to it. So even myself personally, I don't live in the same city with my sisters, and one sister I'm extremely close to, and it's been really, really emotionally hard. We've done the Facebook, we call, we've done the FaceTime, we've done the Zoom, but she's going through a difficult time right now, and I pray with her and help her, but it's nothing like being in the presence, right, of being with her. And so emotionally, I'm going through some challenges. I'm trying to process, how do I stay in the moment and stay present? So I want to go back to being present. Can you help me in terms of understanding what I need to do to be present and accept that this is? Because I think part of my challenge is, I don't know when it's ever going to be over.
Absolutely. And the challenge is none of us have the answer to that question. So I'll just give something very quickly, as I mentioned about mindfulness. Mindfulness is that moment that you take in the present to recognize maybe 3 white things in your physical environment or 3 green things in your physical environment, and focus on your breathing and focus on your breath. And one of the things that I do is I have people practice what we call square breathing, and it's envisioning a 4 square. And you inhale, you hold it, you exhale, you hold it. Inhale, hold, exhale, hold. And do that in the present moment, trying to clear everything from your mind, and then practice centering yourself and being present in the moment. And that's one mindful technique that you can do just to focus on bringing yourself back to present.
Oh, wow. I'm gonna have to remember that. So inhale, hold, exhale, hold.
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna remember that square. I'm gonna remember how to do that, because I tell you, it's really, really difficult. It's especially when you have a close family or someone that you're really, really close to, and I just wanna go. I wanna get on a plane, and I wanna say I'm coming, and but everybody's trying to be that, be responsible and be protective. So we're going to ask some questions. And we're going to ask the audience to participate, so we'll get their perspectives.
Hi, Carla, my question is, what's the impact of the carbon
Dioxide.
dioxide that we breathe back and forth into our mask? How does that affect our health?
That's a really good question. There is a porous nature to the mask that we're wearing, so we do have that kind of back and forth. Healthy people are doing fine. And don't feel like whatever you're inhaling, like you're inhaling your own particles and that makes you feel sicker. That's not what's happening, right? The virus is in your system. Whatever's in your system is there. The actual breathing in and out of it, that's not a problem. What I'm seeing is people that are wearing their masks so much that have asthma or have emphysema or have problems with their breathing. Even people with allergies, because there's so much congestion going on. So they're gonna have to take that mask on and off a little bit more frequently and spend more time outside, spend less time with people, but there's no problem actually wearing the mask. Great question.
So you spoke a lot about the mental and emotional stress on parents, having really to step up and just learn how to be parents and teachers. So my other question, it concerns the academics, like how do you support, or how can I support my family to learn the technology that goes along with going to school at home, understanding, how to use the cloud, how to upload files, because you have that stress. Then you have the stress of being at home, and you have this emotional. And so just any other tips on what we can do to support parents from a 360-degree angle?
So one of the first things I say is to be patient with yourself, because I think oftentimes you can second guess your abilities because you're not a teacher by trade or, technically a teacher. And also don't be so caught up on the fact that you're not that specific professional, because kids just want to be around you. They just want to be in your presence oftentimes. It's not necessarily you doing everything right or doing everything particularly right. Sometimes just you being there is enough. Your presence is oftentimes enough for children. And the more fun that you can make an activity, the more playful that you can make an activity, especially for younger kids, they really appreciate that a lot. If you can engage them in an activity of learning a particular technology or a particular skill, I would definitely say that. So find ways to make it engaging or a learning activity for the child. And then also thinking about social emotional learning. So those are all the aspects that children need for healthy development. So one of the things you want to pay special attention to is what developmental stage is the child in, and doing things that are appropriate to the developmental stage of the child. So as long as you're doing that, you're being patient with yourself, you're creating fun activities and ways to create technology in fun and engaging ways, I think you're probably doing it right.
So thank you so much for joining us on this episode. And I know that we have learned a lot. We've gotten a lot of information, especially when we think about COVID-19, not only the physical, mental, but the emotional side to it. And I'd like for you to join me in thanking my guests for being here today. So thank you. I appreciate both of you. And please join us for our next session. And remember, getting rid of the hidden stories and releasing those stories gives you the freedom that you need. See you next week.